Hey guys, welcome to Toefieldillustration, episode 3. Again, this is Charles Toefield. I am an illustrator from the Maryland / DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania area. And I like working in comics and in tabletop gaming projects. And what I'm doing right now is you see me working on one of the panels for my comic. It's entitled Catacomb Champions. It's going to be a web comic that I'm going to be putting on for the time being exclusively on Instagram. It's a dungeon crawler web comic, definitely very much a love letter to things like D&D, Pathfinder, Warhammer. I do like RPGs. I like tabletop games. That's my jam. And this is a dungeon crawling web comic. And basically it's a webcomic that's posted on Instagram where the audience gets to give input on how the adventure goes. Basically the general thrust is you go through an adventure. Typically it's going to involve a dungeon crawl of some sort, and at periodic moments along the adventure the audience gets to choose what happens. I offer you say 3 or so choices. You decide what you want to do, and then what I do is I roll the rolls, and then we see what the results are. We find out what happens. A couple of things though, just basically the way that you engage with the comic when you want to make those choices is you leave a comment. You say, hey, it'll normally be fight, flee, parlay, investigate, whatever. And then I roll those rolls, but you engage and do that by leaving a comment on the comic, and then the following day I tally up what the input is, and then whatever the input is, that's what we go with. That's what becomes the next page in the comic. Now the comic's going to come out weekly. It's going to come out once a week. Typically it's going to be Wednesdays. Okay. It's going to be Wednesdays since that's a nice time in the middle of the week. Not too much going on. And each page will be between 3 to 4 panels long. So not particularly long in terms of the panel count. Actually, that's by design, since I know I can be a lot more efficient working that way. What you're seeing right now is me blocking in the different planes in the comic page. That's what you're seeing right now. And that's so that way that adds as much depth to the image as possible with as little effort as possible. So that's what you're seeing there. And I'm flipping back to a previous version of the image, and the reason why I'm trying to remember what specifically went awry, but it escapes me. But for whatever reason, there was definitely a need to sort of recolor it so that way I can move forward with the comic. This panel is overlooking a town called Pabri, and Pabri is in a region known as the Deepwood, which is a very large developed area of forest in the frontier, and it's so large that it's actually bordering on the Highwood, and the Highwood is a forest of a different animal altogether, because in the Highwood, the vast majority of the creatures that live there are Sylvan, which means that on some level they're innately magical. So a lot of crazy stuff happens in the Highwood. So the Deepwood is bordering on that, so it's very rugged territory. There's a lot of lawlessness, and you're seeing a small village in the Deepwood, which you can see in the upper left-hand corner. Okay, the village is actually built into a hillside, a small hillside. They're like small, I don't know how to explain it except to say large hills, right, within the Deepwood. They almost look like little mini plateaus. Okay, and they thought that it would be a great idea to build this town into the rock face, since there were already tunnels into it. So in a lot of ways it's very much a part of the nature that surrounds it. So very, very, very idyllic visage the Deepwood is. Okay, but yeah, because of that, they don't just have a lot of wild animals. Sometimes certain animals from the Highwood move into the deep wood because they're just animals, whether they're magical or not. They do what? They migrate, they move around in their general territory. These are what they do, right? Nothing surprising there. But going back to the comic, you engage by leaving a comment, and then if you want, you can actually get a +1 bonus to your submission about what you want to happen. So if there's 5 people that vote for option A, and 10 people that vote for option B, it's not actually 5 to 10. It's actually 5 to 15. I'm sorry, it's 5 to 11, because for every 5 people that vote on one option, if they add a hashtag to it, it counts as a +1 if they use the hashtag. So hashtags are really important. So I want to incentivize that if you're going to engage, you can engage. It's great if you engage. I want you to engage, but there's actually even an incentive that what you ask for is what gets done, because that helps too. And it also helps to get the pages around, because you got to think, if you're a dungeon master, if you're playing D&D, outside of the fact that if you go beyond 4 players, things get really crazy in terms of complexity. But it's always good with projects like this when there's more people that have a say in what's going on, or at least that's my thinking. So, but this really grew out of me wanting to be a dungeon master. I wanted to be a dungeon master. Really wasn't the best fan of 5th edition. Definitely like it, no issues in particular with it per se. Like, it's not horrible. I'm a really big fan of 4th. I like its simplicity. But moving back to this, it'll be something that comes out every Wednesday. As you see right now, by the way, you'll notice that I'm putting in the foreground on the image, and I'm putting in 4 planes of distance, so that way it really provides the most depth as possible. Okay. And then aside from that, I made sure to color the lines, not color the lines, but make the interior lines fade, so that way the whole image doesn't become too visually busy, right? But yeah, a lot about the comic is done with utility in mind. I don't just cell shade. I actually just flat color, and at the very most I add like a highlight, right? Anything that I add beyond that, to add things like atmosphere and stuff like that, is like with just an overlay over top, to sort of unify the colors together and sort of push a mood. If that's my point, like if that's my aim, which is definitely going to be the aim here in this panel, right? You're going to see me fill in this area in the right hand corner with my paint bucket. And then you're going to see my brush sort of still brushing on the trees. And the reason why is really simple. When I work with that, because I have the tolerance set up the way that I do, it leaves a little slither of line that I sometimes have to cover over, right? Nothing unusual. I like it like that. And then I go back in, and then I'm adding the lighter green in the background, just so that way the other plane behind the foreground shows through, So good stuff there. So that is what I'm doing there. But yeah, I'm an illustrator in the Maryland area. Love drawing, love comics, love tabletop games. So I've been trying to go into the industry for a while now. Not a lot of success, but I did have a passion to do something like this, because while I'm not a writer, I definitely do consider myself a storyteller. I do consider myself someone who can understand, pacing, and things of that nature. So this is something I'm doing on my own, just to have fun and stuff. And it's also a really good way to sort of talk about the other products that I offer, because I'm making things like D&D supplemental products, right? Which are things I'm a fan of. So, that stuff's good too. But yeah, what you're seeing here, I don't know when it's going in a little while. What it's going to do is it's going to revert to a slideshow to sort of tell you, to sort of show you the additional steps after I've done the rest of the flat work and stuff like that. So that's what you're gonna see in a little bit. What I'm doing right now, looks like I was messing with my head or something, but now let's see what else I go ahead and do. So I'm moving this around. I believe this is when I start adding highlights. Oh no, you know what I'm gonna do? What I'm gonna do at this point is in a minute or so, I'm gonna start coloring the ground of the surface, the dirt road. And I started off with a pretty saturated brown, right? And then I went ahead and desaturated it, like you can see right now. And then what you're gonna see me do is you're gonna see me follow the pathway sort of from the foreground all the way into the foreground, even where the castle, not the castle, I'm sorry, even where the small village is, where I'm adding in that brown, so that way the overall image sort of leads the eye, right? So that's gonna be good. That's what it looks like I'm doing right now. Yeah, so and what I do is this sort of really helped me to streamline my process. I try to work from as general as possible and then to get incrementally more specific, right? That's definitely, I'm pretty sure what I'm going to start doing now is probably inverse the image and then delete out the brown that's sort of peeking out from behind the panel. That's what I'm guessing is happening right here. and then from there probably continue with the coloring. Oh no, looks like I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna start coloring. That's fine too. But in a minute you'll start to see what constitutes basically a slideshow, right? Where it shows all of the additional steps after that, and you can sort of see me work there. Which is cool too, because you get to see a brief glimpse of, you know, the final image too. So you'll see that, and that'll start in the next minute or so after you watch me work through the surface for a little while. So now I'm going through, looks like I'm coloring a tree trunk. Yeah, looks like I'm coloring a tree trunk. Oh, by the way, while that's all happening, you can find my work at Toefieldillustration.blogspot.com. So just like you see in the upper panel, like you see in the image up above, it's spelled just the way it sounds. Toe like foot and field like football field, you know? And then illustration, and then blogspot.com, because I have a blogspot. I actually tweaked the navigation a little bit. At first I had I had a panel over on my left hand side, which was my main nav, and I actually just changed it up and got rid of the blog and just decided to myself, I'm just going to make the very front of it my navigation, the very front of my blog, the navigation for the portfolio, and that'll just feel as direct as possible, you know? So yeah, that's definitely fun, definitely something I'm excited about. Maybe they'll consider the user interface to be people looking at it a bit more user friendly, so, you know. But yeah, as you can see, I'm shading in the dirt road, how that leads on the left hand side, and I basically, the way that I drew that, I did that by design, how the road sort of zigzags, because I do want you to sort of really take in as much of the panel, you know, even though you're only going to really be looking at it very briefly, you know, because I mean, it is comics, right? And now what I'm doing is I'm blocking in the stones that are sort of lining the road, because that's what you would find, excuse me, in situations like that. You'd find those stones, you know, just off the road. I don't know why exactly, I can't remember, I'm trying to think about that, but there is some specific reason, because it's not like they were laying down asphalt back then, you know. That wasn't a thing. Here we are. Now we're at the slideshow. You see me adding the rim light, the blue, and the shadow. But yeah, please feel free to reach out and take a look at Catacomb Champions on Wednesdays. Have a good one.